Hey Ville, back for another one.
Hey Paul, we're back.
We are back, yeah. Are you going to start us off with a ridiculously bad, stupid joke as normal?
I'm afraid I have to. So.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I figured this out because I was watching some classic movies over the weekend, and I realized something. And the question is, what is the difference between a bank and the Jurassic Park?
I have no idea.
One is a high-risk theme park, mostly occupied by dinosaurs. And the other one is a movie by Steven Spielberg.
Oh, man. we need to stop this.
Are we still recording?
Yes, still recording. Oh, and with that, my good friends, welcome back to another episode of Fintech Daydreaming. We are thrilled that you are still with us, even after the bad jokes that both Ville and I throw at you at every single instance. But we work hard to bring you new content, exciting guests, and thrilling journeys through the fintech industry. As always, we are the podcast that dives into the world of banking technologies and the ever-changing landscape of fintech companies, with real-life examples from guests and experts across the board. And this episode is no exception. So welcome to episode 4 in this current season of Fintech Daydreaming. Hello everybody and welcome back to the show. I am still Paul Krogdahl, and as always I am joined by my fantastically close friend and co-host Ville Sointu. Ville, you are these days rocking the most fantastic facial hair.
Oh.
What's your plan here, man? Are you going to go full on CZ top?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the Corona times gave me a chance to try something new with the facial hair, as you put it.
Yeah.
But I still haven't updated any of my social media profiles, so I guess I have to either own this thing and get it done with, also with the picture updates, or I need to get rid of it. Let's see how it goes. I think I'm kind of starting to get used to it.
You bring the beer, I'll bring the camera.
Sounds like a plan.
Excellent. Okay. Now, due to the current times, as you said, with Corona and so much disruption and ongoing change in the banking industry, I think this episode is extremely relevant and an interesting subject. And we will also get a chance to look at some really interesting cultural differences in digital acceptance and banking with our guest, Ewan MacLeod. Now, Ewan is currently the Chief Transformation Officer at Sohar International. I think that is a fantastic title to have, Chief Transformation Officer. But Ewan has also, in the past, had a number of different jobs focused on digital transformation in Europe, in Oman, and also in the Nordics. I think the last job he had, or actually I know the last job he had before he moved down to the sun and the beach, was as the Chief Digital Officer for Nordea, where I got the pleasure of meeting Ewan at the beginning. But maybe why not let our guests and good friends find out a little bit more about Ewan by Ewan saying hello and maybe introducing himself and giving us a journey on this trip from the British Isles to Oman via the Nordics.
Gentlemen, thank you. It is a real delight to hear your voices once again live. I have been listening along, and I have to say the bad jokes, they are bad. They are bad, but they also, I do smile. I'm sure most of your listeners, many of your listeners are enjoying. Like I think we all enjoy it, and I really enjoy the back and forth between you guys. It's a delight to be here. Thank you.
And we've learnt partially from listening to you and your friends on your podcast. What's the name of it again?
You're very kind to prompt. It's 361 podcast, and
yes.
We'll swap you, Paul and Ville. We'll swap you with a mention. I'm doing a recording tomorrow night, and we'll say a big shout out. 361 is mobile tech in the world around it. We've been doing it for a little while. We really enjoy it. My friends Ben and Rafe there. But we've also been following the great work you've been doing. So congratulations on season 2. This is awesome.
It is.
We're
really pleased. It's moving along quite nicely.
Yeah.
But Ewan, how did you take that journey, right, from the British Isles through the Nordics, and now you're down there in the beautiful sunshine whilst we're up here in the freezing north?
This is true. Okay, a potted history. I was an entrepreneur, doing lots of things in that .com period, which feels like it was 20 years ago, right? In 1999, I think, was when we got our first investment for one of the .coms I'd started. Went through all that exciting period and came out the other end with a company still intact, lots of experience, an MBA in real life, I think, not a formal one, but an MBA in real life. And then I got into banking through a friend of mine, Ed, who he was working at RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, or NatWest Group, as they've now rebranded there in the UK. And that was my first. He said, "Look, come and meet." And they had an internet interactive community. They were trying to kick off. So I joined RBS. That was my first foray into proper banking. I'd done a little bit of work with First Data, but before then, but into working for a proper bank. It was awesome. The millions and millions of customers. It was, I think it's one of the top banks in the UK with 20 or 30% of the banking traffic going through RBS at any given point. So a huge organization. It was a delight to work there. In digital, then I left. It was a contract role. So I left after, I think, 13 months, and then over to Nationwide Building Society. It's the largest mutual society on the planet, looking at innovation. They've got some fantastic stuff that those guys are doing, and it was great to contribute there. And that's a very different approach because it's member based. They're customers, but they're members. A very, very nice company to work for, and very focused on their millions. I think it's 20 odd million customers. Very impressive. And then I back to RBS. Again, and I had a phone call from a recruiter saying, "Do you know RBS?" And I said, "Well, I was working there 6 months ago, so yes." "Oh, right. Would you like to?" And so I found the disconnect quite surprising that they hadn't remembered me, but fair enough. And then I joined there to lead their digital transformation activities, and that was a 200 and like hundreds of millions budget every year or so. Maybe every 2 years, I think that was, to bring their digital programs into the 21st century, and that was a real honor to work with them. We got collectively the app to #1 in Net Promoter Score. We had a great time delivering great value, I think, to customers. So the app, the focus heavily there was app banking, updating the app, bringing new services such as Apple Pay and so on to market. That was super, super exciting. And then from there, I had a call to say, "Look, what do you think about Denmark?" And my wife had just been reading that book, How to A Year of Living Danishly. Do you know that one?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Yeah.
So she'd be reading all about this lady. She said, "Oh, we should definitely go to Denmark." And it was funny to get that. So I had some dialogue with Nordea, and then I was delighted to join there in 2016 as CDO. And that again was an awesome time running their or contributing toward all of their digital transformation, and setting up Nordea Ventures. So that I really enjoyed that aspect in particular, and the partnership activity. I think, in fact, that's Paul and Ville. That's how I got to know you guys very well.
Yes.
Both of you, through all of those activities. And that was, again, an inspiration there, working under Casper and Torsten, the CEO and COO there. An awesome time, a great team. And just the opportunity to live in the Nordics. Now, here I am in Oman, and I can tell you it was a wonderful time in across the Nordics. It was great I was living in Copenhagen, but I got to be in all of the Nordic countries. Once or twice. There were some weeks where I was in every Nordic country, doing meetings or events or something. And that was just a pure delight. I love the Nordics, absolutely love the Nordics, and especially the banking ecosystem, the technology banking ecosystem there. And then most recently, I think my time at Nordea was coming to an end, as it does. There's kind of ebb and flow there. A new management team, and I had some conversations with them, and I think it was it's a joint agreement there, and I moved on, and then the opportunity to come to Oman popped up. So it was with great sorrow, to leave Nordea, but a wonderful time, absolutely wonderful time. And then I flew out to Oman and met the CEO and the chairman here. And the bank is Sohar International. It's a key player in the country. And the job is, as you say, Chief Transformation Officer. Sounds fantastic. Basically, it's getting stuff done, helping contribute to this bank's journey in digital transformation, which is slightly different from Nordea, RBS, Nationwide.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we'll get into that in more detail as we move through the episode today. Just one quick question: if you were to ask your children, which would they say has been best? Is it back in the British Isles, or has it been Denmark, or down?
That's a very good question. I think if you asked them right now, I think they would say Denmark. Look, they love Oman, but they said Denmark is still that's where their friends are, because even though we've been here for 7 months, they haven't really met anybody because everything's been virtual. The schooling, there's been no schooling since March, April. It's just been remote. And then they've now started back. So I think they started back virtually. So they still remember Denmark. And my number 2 son, the middle child, he constantly talks about Denmark. And of course, he means the Nordics.
There's this beautiful, nice Viking part of the world.
Oh, tell me about it. Yes.
Okay. Well, so Ville, as we have discussed before on this podcast many times, the banking industry has for several years been facing, a dramatic and fundamental digital disruption, which keeps on accelerating and is driving a completely new and emerging paradigm for the banks. And I think that's across the world, whether you're in the British Isles or in any part of the world, really. Now, this disruption has been, I think we can agree, driven by a number of different things, but predominantly by changes in customer behavior, where customers like us today are used to getting this instant gratification and services that are tailored specifically for us and aligned to our current situation in life, etc., and delivered on demand, just in time, using self-service digital platforms. I mean, just think about the way that we interact with the app stores for our mobile phones. Quickly select something, yes, no, like it or not, get rid of it, not even giving it a second thought. But there's also a number of other critical elements that are disrupting the banking industry at the moment, as we are pushing a new focus onto this digital transformation agenda that we're going to be talking about today. That there is the growing number of new entrants into the industry, such as the digital-only neobanks. Revolut, Starling are great examples of this. And then the sort of ongoing journey of the fintechs and the big tech companies all sort of coming in and trying to change the playing field. And then I suppose, as you alluded to a little bit, Ewan, the most significant disruptive change to the financial industry is the coronavirus, and the spread of this virus and the subsequent sort of government measures that have been put in place to control the spread is having a lasting global impact on the banks and their core money-making mechanisms, right, to be able to continue to drive. So, we've seen this already. Banks are desperately trying to become more and more digital. They're driving to extreme digitization. There's a fundamental problem where most of the banks have said digital is a channel, or digital is about the front end, the new app, etc., and forgotten to a certain degree about the lagging back-end systems, a lot of processes that are still manual, and there's now all of it's coming to a breaking point.
Yeah.
And this has been a focus for you, Ewan, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I can remember the times that we had meetings, discussions, coffees, laughs,
many
tears,
times.
Everything during your Nordea days.
Yeah.
I think most banks struggle in part with digital. What is your view on this, and what do you see as the main struggle for the banks in becoming truly digital?
I think there's a couple of points here. One is cost, and then revenue, right? Because it's really difficult when you're staring down at a couple of hundred million or billions in revenue from a particular product line. And then a chap like me or you both of you, it's saying, look, I think we should do it this way. Why don't we do it this way? And he's saying, well, yeah, I like the idea of that, but I am, I am on the hook here And every quarter I need to deliver results. And maybe I get a little bit of a pass because of Corona for this quarter, and maybe the next quarter. But after that, no. I need to deliver my results. So then how am I going to channel my resources? And when you say, well, look, if you just give me 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, if you give me this much, I'll then give you the world. And that's where that exec has to make that really, really key determination. Will you deliver? Will it work? Will I get the returns? And will it be precisely the same or more money? And this is the problem is you have to say, well, we're not entirely sure. We don't know. Not sure how the customer's going to react. But what we do know is X, Y, Z. Couldn't we test and learn? But routinely what you find is these executives, the ones that are charged typically with delivering results, they're not necessarily the innovation dude. They're not necessarily thinking about doing things differently. They're looking at incremental change all of the time, right? Because anything else is too dangerous to impact that revenue. So I think if you focus heavily on that one issue, then all the things that hang off that. But that one issue is, how do I protect this revenue stream? And I know, late at night I can sit and reflect and go, the numbers are getting lower. Even my friends, even the neighbor is saying they're not using the system, the service, whatever. Even my mother has gone and bought a mortgage on her mobile app. Yet I'm still doing the old way. I'm doing the old way, still making $1 billion, still making $500,000, still making $500 million, whatever the revenues are. The big question is you've got to look the CEO and the market. You've got to look the market in the eye and go, I've stopped doing that. So the innovation aspect, the trying to change, is really, really difficult. And you see some banks are better than this than others. But if I like that as the crux here, right? The revenue question, because often it means that you're going to have to sacrifice. It doesn't have to. But typically when you're talking to these all or nothing guys and girls, when you say, look, I think we should just do things differently. Why don't we switch this one off and start doing this? That's unrealistic, unworkable. And you've also got a whole lot of customers that want to do business in a particular way because that's how it's done now. It's quite difficult when you're looking at the old incumbent brand. The expectation is, I need to come to the branch. And it's going to take ages. And I'm happy with that. I don't like it, but I'm happy with that. But then this new brand, I have very different demands of that new brand, this new entrant. And I have different expectations. So I will happily press 3 buttons and then get my mortgage quote. And then actually, I'll buy the house that way. Now, the issue is that with more and more customers doing that, it's quite difficult to see this happening. The management information systems aren't necessarily that good for that executive to be able to track these changes. And then that executive isn't compensated on making sure the bank's there in 5 years or 10 years.
No, it's the short-term benefit over the long-term vision, right?
Right. No, you have seen this a lot in other banks, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's a lot about how financial services and banks are structured in general. I mean, they're always risk averse, and by definition, innovation is risky. You don't really know the outcomes of when you're inventing new things, and these cultures are clashing all the time in banking. Even though everybody in the banks know that they need to change, they need to invent new things, but at the same time, there's this risk averseness and change resistance that is kind of inbuilt to the way the banks are structured as companies. So I think that this is the fundamental culture crash, and then of course the fact that there's the cycle of management is typically so that if you don't deliver something in 2 to 3 years, then you have to convince the next wave, and that's a little bit difficult to maintain this momentum for a longer period of time.
Yeah. Yes.
Or even more fundamentally, right? I don't have to worry about it because in 3 years' time I'll have a different job anyway. So the only thing I have to worry about is what's going to satisfy for the next 2 years or 3 years, and then after that it's someone else's problem.
Now that might sound cynical, right? It might. But there's also a reality there, right? So when you arrive in, your KPIs are keep the existing cash cow working.
Yes.
By all means, do some incremental change, reduce some cost, but keep the existing. That's your number one KPI, right? And in most banks, that will be the situation. And they don't. The KPI, the number one KPI, isn't diversify revenues. It isn't, right? It's keep the show on the road. So and so it may have sounded cynical there, Paul, when you were saying that, but also the reality is that's what's expected of them, right? That's what the CEO is demanding of them.
Yes.
And it's very easy, because often I see this in many organizations when they're talking publicly, and many banks, the CEOs are like banging the drum, saying, "Come on, we're going to do this and we're going to do that." And the key question is to ask is, okay, that sounds awesome, but then are you is that how you're measuring the performance of your bank? Oh no. We're looking at net interest income and fees, and the same way. Okay. Because I think it's very well talking about this. But what's interesting is you do see some organizations that have drunk the Kool-Aid and then have managed to implement this. And there's quite a few banks I think we could all mention that they have implemented agile, true agile, and they have implemented this thing called listening to the customer, obsessively, and they are using venture funding as appropriate to invest in other markets. So they're testing and learning constantly. And that's the thing I think that you across your podcast, as I've been listening, one of the themes here is test and learn. You haven't been voicing it specifically, but it's that testing and learning approach here. And I think that's fair to say that's where you guys live. Is that a fair comment here?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that test and learn approach is really, really important. So if you can gather the support of the executives in these incumbents by saying, look, couldn't we all agree we need to test and learn, and we need to do things differently? Yes. Okay, right. Okay, so therefore, couldn't we all agree that 10% of your budget is now going to be moved to that? Ooh, that's difficult. Okay, 5%. 5% this year, 10% next year. Okay, right. So now you've got a central team, but that central team, they've also got to be KPI'd correctly. Because if that central team is just an innovation team, sitting, smiling, wearing Nikes, lovely, smart, tight T-shirts on, and all they're doing is doing fun stuff, testing and learning without doing anything, without delivering any value, that's a problem. So I think what we're seeing from other organizations across the planet is, and not just, I'm not just talking about banks here, but financial companies. A lot of the successful ones are testing and learning, but they're doing so at scale, and that's where I think it gets rather exciting.
Yeah, and I think there's another little small element to that as well, because I've seen it repeatedly with a large number of banks that say, we're going to create an innovation team or an innovation department, and they set them off to one side in the building, right? They create this fantastic room, and it's got the Xboxes, and it's got everything else, ping pong tables. Go and do all your cool stuff and your brainstorming. And the trouble is that it's segregated so far away from the rest of the organization. There's no way of actually executing it back into the lines of business. They can have the best ideas ever, but there's no way of actually pulling that back in. The innovation team shouldn't be out in a corner. The innovation team should be fundamentally built into everything that's happening with the inside of the whole organization.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and then it's looking at things in a particular way. I really like that viewpoint and say, look, this is a cash cow here, and we honor that. This is wonderful, and you know what? A lot of our customers love it. Not only do they love it, they need it, right? And as is evidenced by the revenues here, and it doesn't matter what the brand reputation is. It's the customers clearly need it. The money's still in the accounts. Yeah, that's the cash cow. Great. Okay, but what are our bets? What are our new businesses? Yeah, we're going to take some stakes in some other businesses because we don't understand them, but we should do. Because after 6 months, you get a good idea of watching how a company's working. If you've taken a stake in them, you can sit on the board, you can talk to the management team, you can learn a heck of a lot about a particular market that you're not in. Now that's exciting. I really believe in that approach there. But then your own innovation team as well, doing things differently is really, really valuable as well. But I think if you say, look, cash cows over there in the corner, and keep going, and guys, you do incremental change. That's awesome. But then over here, you guys, you need to generate some significant revenue quickly because we've got a cash cow over there, right, with 10 million, 20 million, 100 million customers. Okay, those 100 million customers we can leverage. Now, what else shall we be offering them? And what are we doing with the mobile app experience for the cash cow, for the incumbent? And how can we connect that to new experiences that we can create? And that I think.
Hello?
We lost Ewan.
We lost Ewan. You're back.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I just finished saying there are a few examples of that in the marketplace, though. I think is that fair? And then silence.
Yes.
Where did you leave? Where did you lose me? Sorry.
We lost you somewhere there. It reminds me an awful lot of the early days with the two of you working with the Nordea Accelerator Program, right? All of those fantastic ideas, working with the fintechs, and the most incredible innovative team from Nordea in driving all of this sort of new thinking, etc. So, Ewan, you've had the pleasure now to work with banks both in Europe, but also now in the Middle East. Do you see a big difference in attitudes towards digital and digitalization between the various areas?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. And I love the phrase or the word attitude. You know, the difference in attitude. No, zero difference in attitude. There are some different realities on the ground, but attitude, no. Okay, so let me explain that. All of my colleagues in the bank are using the latest smartphones, latest Android. Android is very popular here, more than Apple. Yeah, there's loads of Huawei as well, all over the place. And yeah, the customers are. It's a young country, and the customers are hugely. So I say the customers. The population is hugely mobile driven, with all of them with smartphones. I mean, now and again you'll see what we call a feature phone. Right, but typically speaking, there are smartphones everywhere, and on those smartphones are smart apps. Right, yeah. So you can have anything delivered you need at any point. There's an awesome service called Talabat, equivalent to Volt or Deliveroo or Foodora. Talabat and Akid is the competitor here, and that's how you order food. It's how you order. I actually ordered a robot vacuum cleaner via Talabat, so it's not just food. And it arrives in 20 minutes. Awesome. So what I'm highlighting here in Oman, just as an example, the attitude to digital is exactly as you would find in central London or in central Helsinki. The attitude. The service reality is somewhat different. In some ways, I would say here in the Middle East, I do find it feels a little bit more advanced in terms of a mobile culture. That really stimulates me. Now, what I mean by that is many places, they don't have a website, they have an Instagram. Whereas you and I, if we were ordering something from, I needed to buy some gym equipment. I was thinking I needed to do some running, and I was quite frustrated that trying to order, they didn't really have a website, and that's I in conversations with my colleagues and with the locals around here, they said, well, yeah, you don't need to use a website, just to use Instagram. Okay, right, but how do you contact them? There's no phone number. Oh yeah, or there is a phone number but nobody answers. You chat to them on Instagram, or have a look because it will say their WhatsApp number. Say, really? Because I'm accustomed to WhatsApp, but I'm not really accustomed to using that to talk to business. So here, most of the economy, it feels like is driven by WhatsApp. So every time I get a Talabat delivery or some food delivery or whatever, water delivery, or my gadget delivery, there's a shop called Gadgets Oman, and you just WhatsApp them, right? They've got an Instagram account, okay, and every day they put up stuff just to tempt you, right? And then so I sent them a note the other day saying, have you got any AirPods Pro? Because I couldn't find mine. The chap writes back immediately going, yes. I said, all right, how much are they? He says, whatever, reals. I'm like, okay, cool. I said, can I have those? And do you know what? Can I have two? One for the wife. He said, yeah. He said, same address. I said, yeah. It's cool. And then about 40 minutes later, a guy arrives outside with two AirPod Pros. Now, so the attitude here, the attitude to digital is awesome. But what we haven't got here is a very good billing system, because we're all using WhatsApp. They're all using Instagram, but Instagram and WhatsApp. I know that the Facebook has been experimenting with turning on transaction activity here. It's very late here because it's definitely needed. Because by the way, the AirPods Pro I paid with cash, right? You remember cash, right, guys?
I think so. Isn't that the sort of clanky stuff that goes in your pocket?
Paper, yeah, exactly, right? And I had to go to an ATM. I've never used an ATM so often here, right? So there's bits that are disconnected still here, whereas in the Nordics it's all connected somehow via web. It's interesting to see that these guys are mobile only. That's not entirely accurate, but it feels that it's mobile only here as opposed to mobile first. in Northern Europe. That I think is very interesting. There's no Apple Pay in the country. There's no Google Pay in the country yet. There is across the Middle East. There are. It's been launched. Yeah, and that I think it's a very, very digitally centric culture. I feel. Whereas in the Nordics, I think you're still sitting down to a desktop now and again, or to an iPad experience here. I find here, most of our customers, the banking customers, most of the transactions are being done via mobile. But then, at the same point, there's still a branch network is still very, very popular. But then, then you've got Corona.
Yeah, exactly. That was going to be my next question.
All right, right.
If it's so cash heavy still, and there's still the branches, etc. How's the whole pandemic affected the region and the banking business? Do
you remember that quote from Satya Nadella from Microsoft? What is it? We've seen 3 years digital transformation in 3 months. Yes. That I think is what we did here, because when the lockdown came, it was a very serious lockdown. It wasn't the Swedish style. It was stay in your houses, just go out and get some food. And the population, I think across the Gulf, but particularly here in Oman, was very respectful of that. And what that meant is you couldn't come to branch. Okay. The branches were shut, or very, very strictly limited. Now, what that did is push a lot of colleagues. So that the lingering view was that you had to come to branch, you had to come and get something stamped or signed. It had to be a wet signature. All of that began to get challenged very, very quickly. So I think as horrifying an experience for all of us as it has been, and it continues to be, it has been really positive in terms of digital adoption, and in terms of senior colleagues. I'm not just talking about my place, but senior individuals across the country, across the region. And yes. You know what? This is probably global, actually. I shouldn't just pick on highlight Middle East. Senior colleagues going, oh, we should just do that. And that I think has been transformative. I mean, very, very helpful in my role, because the door is open, physically, literally open, rather than me having to knock on it or try and convince people to open it slightly and say, look, couldn't we possibly try and do this? So I think that's particularly exciting. But I think we find that well, what's happening in the Nordics? What are you seeing?
I think to a certain degree we're seeing the same. We are seeing digitization accelerating, but it doesn't sound like it's as extreme as in the Middle East. What do you say, Ville?
No, I think the biggest transformation really that's happening in work in general is that everybody's using remote conferencing now for all the meetings, but it was interesting to observe that actually that didn't really change too much, because the bank where I'm working right now is a Nordic bank, so most of our meetings are going to be done in English, and there are probably going to be people from different offices joining. So you ended up sitting in Skype and Teams conferences most of the day, even before Corona. So what's changed now is that you don't go to the office anymore, and you don't get to drink coffee with your colleagues anymore. But beyond that, the ways of working, the way my calendar is structured, is as far as the work within the bank goes, is pretty much the same. The difference, and we talked about this in the podcast before, is really that you don't travel anymore. You don't go to conferences. You don't get to do all the fun stuff of speaking in front of audiences and all the networking that goes with it. But the day-to-day work, as far as the bank goes, I think it's of course accelerated in terms of how many Teams meetings we have, but ultimately not that different. See, when it comes to the society in general, what also helps in the Nordics, that's why I said it hasn't really changed much for the society and banking, is because there is a strong digital identity space already established in the Nordics. So everybody has their own, able to do their digital signatures. Everybody is able to do a lot of things remotely. So even that really hasn't changed that much. And this actually reminds me, because I also used to work in the Middle East. I lived in Dubai for 2.5 years, give or take. And you really notice the absence of a proper digital identity in the region. I always remember when one of the local banks launched their digital onboarding process, which was effectively an online form that you filled, and then a person started harassing you over the phone, calling you in order to find out where you are, so you can send the paperwork over a courier to you that you can actually sign, and they will verify your Emirates ID at the same time. So it's at least this was 3-4 years ago. The things might have evolved now, especially now in the region as well, or in the UAE. But back then it was, as a Nordic person with an established digital identity scheme already in place, I think the contrast was pretty stark, to put it mildly.
I think the main thing that's happened is that the pandemic has created this gap, as we've said, which has pushed people more towards using digital channels to be able to communicate with the bank. And in doing so, it has made the sort of asymmetry of information a lot clearer. The lack of transparency. People are very concerned at the end of the day. And when we're talking about money is driven by emotions, right? We make our decisions about our money based on emotions very often rather than facts. And a lot of the time we're talking about uncertainty. And particularly when you suddenly then throw in a pandemic into the middle of it all and say, oh, by the way, you can't come to the branch because we understand that you've got concerns and you're not sure what to do. But we've got digital channels. Those digital channels are not really helping enough. There's not enough advisors to help. The advisors have been uprooted as well. I think due to all of that, the banks have suddenly realized that digital is no longer an option. Digital is a must, and sort of accelerating that whole digital capability a lot better has become a priority. And I think that's very visible here in the Nordics, and I think it's probably visible in most parts of the Western world, right?
Have you phoned anybody recently? Because one of the challenges I've had is I've been phoning some of the UK banks and financial services providers. In fact, I still have UK car insurance that I took out in January when I moved back to the UK. For a temporary car. It was a rental car. And then I've been trying to cancel it. But every time I phone, they say, I'm sorry, we're terribly busy because of COVID. So we can't answer your phone. You can't answer your call. Or there may be and I waited, I think, 11 minutes. And then hung up, right? And then I did it again. I tried 15 minutes and then hung up. And every time I'm terrible because of COVID. We're really, really busy. No, I understand this, but not. And I've been on the other side of this stuff. It's difficult. But then as a customer, I'm thinking, cool. I just want to cancel my insurance. And what's interesting on their website, on their amazing digital channels, is there a cancellation function? No, there's not.
No.
Right. Okay. For various different reasons, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a cynical reason or a cynical explanation, which is we don't want you to do it that way, or we want to try and rescue you. You got to phone us, and we'll try and downsell, upsell you. So at the moment, I've been paying for car insurance for 3 or 4 months. 4 months now that I absolutely do not need, and I'm not quite sure how to. I emailed, nothing. And then I think I did get a reply from one of these insurance companies, and they said, "Oh, you need to phone us." So, what do you do in that situation? Now, I hope the companies in the Nordics have innovated this one. Tell me you're not suffering from that kind of issue, or you haven't heard that issue.
It's not that bad here. Yes, I think I phoned my electrical supplier once, but it wasn't that long. But whilst for instance, my current bank that I do most of my banking with here in the Nordics, and now I'm going to be a bit derogatory, but they are fairly digital. They're good at their digital, right? And I decided that I've been doing a lot of my US stock trading using a different channel, and actually I posted about this on LinkedIn.
I remember.
I think Ewan, you commented on this, right? I was bloody amazed that I contacted them and said, I'd like to start trading through you on the US stock market rather than using a third party that I'm using. And they said, yes, you have to come in and visit us. It's COVID time. What do you mean I have to come into a branch and visit you? Yes, you need to show your passport. can't I just take a picture of it?
But hold on a minute. I can send money around the world with this account, right? Currently.
Yeah.
I just want to send it to a particular place, i.e. America.
No. You have to come in and show your passport. Yeah, but I opened an account with someone else. I took a picture with my phone and I opened the account. It took me, 10 minutes to open the account, go through KYC, etc., and then start trading. You want me to take my passport and go down to my local branch and stand in queue to hand it over to someone that's going to basically take a picture of it? Come on.
Now, guys, we know banking well enough to say that there is a risk colleague or a compliance colleague somewhere that I would wonder went home early, right? What that day when they were talking about making this process work beautifully. And they just go, okay, let's just come to the branch. Just come to the branch. Yeah, because no one's going to ask, right? Without thinking about the implication here, right? You already know who the individual is, right? Because you've got you're already liable. The KYC, they need to know who you are, okay? Because for various different purposes, to give you access to an American stock trading system, that's fine. But they also need the same KYC, more or less, to give you the bank account.
But this is now I'm going right back to the beginning of this podcast, Ewan, right? This is because of the lack of, modernization of the back end systems. It's because the bank is stovepiped. It's because one line of business is not connected to the other. So although you've KYC'd in one line of business, you still need to KYC in the other because the back end systems are not interconnected. And the idea of one golden client record, forget it.
Let me ask you this question, Paul. Let me ask you this question, right? Are you still paying them?
In the Nordics, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any bank you can't pay, right?
Well, this is my point. So you are rewarding it.
Oh, yes.
Right.
I have no choice.
No, wait a minute. You chose to give them money.
That's true.
Paul, other bank services are available in the region.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Yes. Very professional ones, I might add. Very professional ones.
Yes. So here's my warning to my bank: be careful, or I might leave.
See, now that was my point there. As you say, coming back to the start, what's the cost to them to not do it? What's the cost to them? And the cost is your frustration.
Yes.
But they can't monetize that, and there's no actual cost to them yet. But they will react very, very quickly when half of their customers choose a third party to trade with.
Yes.
That's when they'll need to, and then by that point it's too late.
Absolutely. Then it is too late.
And this is the dichotomy that they face. We all face in this situation.
Exactly. And this is where the fintechs have all been, fantastically good because they've looked at the banking processes and said, but we can do that. We can do that a million times better. We know exactly how to make that better. We can make it fantastically fast and simple and easy to use or remove all the frictions. And then they hit a brick wall. They go, what is this regulation you talk about? What do you mean regulated industry? What do you mean
wet signature?
What do you
Risk
mean?
management.
I have to
KYC.
I thought this was easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So I can understand, but we need to. It's partnership. That's what it is.
I agree with you.
But guys, unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Oh.
It's sad. It's horrible. I'm fantastically enjoying this, and I could go on for forever. But I think we've got to the end of our time. Maybe Ewan, we need to get you back on another episode at some point in time, or you could invite Ville and me to your podcast.
I think we should do both. We should do. Yeah. I would love to join you again. Thank you for your patience with me, and come and join us on 361. Definitely.
We have to do that. That sounds like an open invitation. But
awesome.
You'll have to bring some beer, right?
Definitely.
Yes. But unfortunately, my friends, as always, time flies when you are having fun. And it is time for us to close out this fantastic episode of Fintech Daydreaming. But before we do close, Ewan, Ville and I would really like to give you a chance to let our fantastic global listeners know how they can find you. If they want to get in touch with you, find out more about you, where do they ping you?
Very kind of you. LinkedIn, probably the most effective. Just EWAN .net is the other one, but just LinkedIn. Talk to me there.
Cool. Yeah. We'll put the links in the bottom so that people can find you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And thank you again for coming on the show. And thank you for the fantastically great discussion. I think it's been outstandingly good, fun, and,
thank you guys.
And good.
I've missed you.
Now, yes, we've missed you too.
You too.
I think you need to make a trip back to the Nordics.
When they open the airport, Paul. When they open
the airport. What's this COVID?
Yes.
But now, listeners, do you have a fintech subject you would like Ville and myself to cover in a future episode? Or maybe you have a great story that you would like to come and share with us. Get involved in a discussion like we've just had with Ewan. If you do, ping us on LinkedIn or on the Anchor FM page and let us know. With that, see you all again in 2 weeks' time when we will have another great guest with us here on Fintech Daydreaming.